guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Crystal. I am the owner and creator of Pienk and the Pienk Print, and today we are going to be making s'mores cold process soap. Now, usually when we make our soaps on this channel, I start off with my lye solution and my oils already prepped, but for today's video, I wanted to take it a step back and show you how it is that we get to that point. So the first step in cold process soap making, or soap making in general, is to run your recipe through a lye calculator. I have two calculators that I like to use. The first one is soapcalc.net and the second one is Brambleberries. Now, if I have a brand new recipe that I've never used before, or if I'm tweaking a recipe that I've used before, so let's say I'm out of an oil and I want to substitute a different one, in those instances I will use soapcalc.net because it gives you a lot more detail. If I'm using my tried and true recipe that I've used hundreds of times, then I'll just use the Brambleberry one. It's a little bit quicker, even though it doesn't give you all the extra details. Going back over to soapcalc.net, one of the main reasons why I love this one is because it gives you these details over here. So it tells you for each oil, so let's say for example, avocado oil. For each oil, it will give you these values for hardness, cleansing, conditioning, bubbliness, so on and so forth. And it also will tell you the ideal range for each of those. So if you are trying to formulate a new recipe, this is really good to get into. And so you can see how your bar is going to be before you actually make it. It also gives you down here your saturated and unsaturated fats. So I really like this tool for that one. And usually I use my own recipe. I have formulated my own recipe for my soaps that I've made in the past. But for today's video, I'm actually going to use this recipe here. This is from Katie at Royalty Soaps. If you watch soap making videos here on YouTube, I'm sure you've heard of her before. She has this recipe in the description of all of her videos, but it's also here on her website. So I'm going to go through and show you how we would enter this into SoapCalc because I've never used this recipe before, and I've never used palm oil or sweet almond oil in a soap either. So starting up here at the top, our type of lye, we're going to use NaOH, which is sodium hydroxide. Sodium hydroxide is what you use for bar soap or solid soap. KOH is potassium hydroxide, and that's what you use for liquid soap. So we're going to use NaOH. Our weight of oils, I'm going to do 60 ounces. And then we are going to do a lye concentration. Over here she tells us our lye concentration is 35.2%. So I'm going to put in here 35.2. She also tells us our super fat is 5%, I believe. Yes. So we have that part done. Now let's go through and add in our oils. So we have olive oil at 40% and then coconut oil at 30%. So olive oil at 40% and then coconut oil at 30%. All right, and then next we have palm oil at 20%. So scroll and find palm oil at 20%. And then last we have sweet almond oil and castor oil, both at 5%. So sweet almond oil and castor oil. All right, so the next step is to hit calculate recipe. And you can see that now over here the all column is filled out. So the one column is for the particular oil that you're clicked on. The all column is for all of your oils that you have over here combined. And again, the same applies, so you can go over your hardness to see how hard your bar will be. This should be anywhere between 29 and 54, and as you see, we're at 41. So you can do this for all of your recipes that you create for soap making. Now to actually see how much of each oil that we need to use, you'll want to click View or Print Recipe. And then you'll get this, and now you can see for olive oil how many ounces we need. And if I go back, as you see here, I did 60 pounds. That should be 60 ounces. So we do not need 60 pounds of soap. So we're going to close that. I'm going to go back and change this to ounces. And we're going to do that again. So we'll calculate our recipe, view or print our recipe. And that looks much better. So now that we have this, I'm going to, you can either print it off or just put your computer somewhere that you can see it. And I'm going to go over to the workstation and we'll go ahead and get this prepped. Alright, so I have my recipe taped up on the wall in front of me so I can see it. And I always like to start off by prepping my lye solution. And that's because it gets really hot and so it takes longer to cool off. So I like to go ahead and get it made first so I can set it to the side and it can be cooling while I'm mixing up my oils. So this recipe says that I need 15.84 ounces of water. So I want to use distilled water. Turn my scale on, I'm going to measure out 15.84 ounces. If I don't make a mess. And then we need 8.6 ounces of our lye. Alright, now we want to mix our water and our lye together, and you always want to pour your sodium hydroxide into your water, never the other way around. If you do it the other way around, it will volcano out of the cup and you could burn yourself. This gets really, really hot. So always the sodium hydroxide or the lye into the water, not the other way around. So I'm going to pour this in here and then I'm going to stir it up until all of the sodium hydroxide is dissolved. Alright, so now that we have this all mixed up, I'm going to set it off to the side and we're going to go ahead and start mixing up our oils. But first, I want to go ahead and give you an idea of how hot this is. So it is 217 degrees. So very hot, so you have to be very careful with this and also make sure that you're mixing it in something that can withstand that amount of heat. Alright, so we're ready to go ahead and start mixing up our oils. And we're going to start off with our hard oils, or if you have any butters, you'll want to do those first. So all we have as far as hard oils go are coconut oil and our palm oil. So I'm going to get these measured out. Our recipe calls for 18 ounces of coconut oil, and then it calls for 12 ounces of palm oil. And it's a little bit warm in my room, so they're slightly melted already. Right now we want to melt these down so that they are completely liquid. You can do that either using the double boiler method on the stove, or you can do it in the microwave, just microwaving this on 15-second bursts until it's all melted. So I'm gonna melt this down and then I'll come back. Alright, so I'm back and we have our hard oils already melted here. So now we're gonna start adding in our liquid oils. So our recipe calls for 24 ounces of olive oil. Alright, and then it asks for 3 ounces of sweet almond oil and 3 ounces of castor oil. So that's it. We are all done prepping the base of our soap. So the only thing I have left to do is to measure out my fragrance oil, mix up my colorants, and then also make my embeds, which actually I've already made, but I'm not going to show you. You'll have to stay tuned to part 2 to see that part. So let's go ahead and move on to our fragrance oils. So today I'm using graham crackers from Nature's Garden, and you'll want to check the usage rate for your fragrance oil. And then the last thing I need to do is mix up my colorants. So I'm going to be using titanium dioxide, which is what I'll use for my white. And I'm going to mix this up using 1 part titanium dioxide to 2 parts of distilled water. The next color I am going to mix up is Soft Brown. This is by TKB Trading. So to mix this one up, I'm just going to scoop some of it into a cup, and then I'll add a little bit of sweet almond oil and mix it together. And then after that, I'll do the same thing with Mimosa Yellow. I wanted to use a darker brown, but I'm out, so we're going to use this color and just brighten up the soap a little bit so it's not so dark. And we are all done prepping our soap. I'm going to see you in part 2 for the actual making of our s'more soap. But until then, if you liked this kind of video, if you liked seeing kind of how I prep for my soap making or any other behind the scenes videos, make sure you give this a thumbs up and leave me a comment so that I know to continue creating this type of content. And until part 2, I'll talk to you later. Bye!